Here we go. Hello and welcome, everyone. Today is July 16th, 2024. Thank you for taking the time. We're focused on a digital world town hall meeting. We have a lot of guests today who we'll introduce here in a second. But first, we'll go through a couple of the different agenda items and some of the folks that are involved. This is a private membership association. Some of the things we'll talk about may be forward-looking. And some of the crazy things that have kind of happened over the last couple of weeks is primarily an assassination on President Trump's life at an event in Pennsylvania, and some of the ramifications associated with that and what that'll mean for the election, for the future. But I think a lot of it just goes to show an 80-year-old man that is standing for what he knows to be true and to be right. As those of you that have really watched over the years, we do our best not to take political sides, but build neutral systems for whoever is in power to be able to have an option that is not the centralized system that is currently just infested with systems that are massively overreaching, primarily around privacy and travel and identity. And those around currencies also tie into the rest of that, even though currency it's not what life is about. But we also know that those who create currencies could also create the rules. And that's also, when you look biblical times, which the money changers were very looked at in a very negative way. But when we look at the landscape of what's happening in real time and we kind of put it in perspective, and then we roll that out with what's happening as technology is advancing, as systems are going on, that's really what this pulse of this meeting is all about. So for those that are not aware, a similar thing has occurred this last month, namely the 2nd of June. This individual actually got into power. We'll talk a little bit more about her, but along the way, these individuals not just had assassination attempts on their lives like what Trump experienced this last week, but they actually were all assassinated. So there's a common thread, and they were assassinated throughout an election process of 2024, but they were assassinated specifically in Mexico. And it's a very interesting, when we talk about, I don't know if you ever read a book called Pendulum, but where it's talking about back and forth every years or every 80 years. There's an interesting tie to what we actually are experiencing within humanity. So in the Mexican ecosystem, this is actually the first woman to be president. She went through some crazy elections to be able to get to be where she's at. And what's very interesting, in the US, we know of, the House, the Senate, the judiciary, the president, and their ability to do certain things with just signing, vetoes, so to speak, by executive decree. But in the Mexican environment, you've seen a hold literally back to 1910, where consistent power has basically gone. But what you've seen in this last year, in this election that just ended on June 2nd, is a shift in not just power, but a unity and control. And when you kind of understand and go through the details associated with it, you see a country. Now, she hasn't, but we've already been approached multiple other ecosystems. When I say we, I'm specifically talking about, and I'm going to go and show this in a little different way here. I'm specifically talking about the different phases of the digital world. So for those that are not aware, we focused within the Pacific. I'm going to back up and just go through kind of how it rolled out. So we focused within the Pacific, and then from there, the second phase was to be within this ecosystem here. And as we started seeing pieces of this rolling out, we literally, we didn't even reach out. I mean, these things are actually reaching out to the digital world to say, hey, could those systems actually do new types of things for identity for the future of Mexico, or the future of Belize, or Guatemala, or Panama, or Colombia, or even some that are south. And they're starting to understand the power of what this is. And a couple of the countries, even south from there, have already adopted other systems like Venezuela, and what they're doing with Bitcoin. And then I believe centralizing decentralized systems, or what Brazil is doing specifically with BRICS and what that means. And this is a chart that really kind of brings it together, but in 3 phases. The first phase was within the Pacific. The second phase was specifically within the Americas, also known as Turtle Island. So if you haven't heard the phrase Turtle Island before, let me kind of show it to you. This is an environment that it's actually, and I wish a gentleman could be on today, but you know what? I'll actually play a video that he created in Utah, a very special one. I was chatting with him earlier today. His name is Phil Lane Jr., but he's actually helping to bring together the reunion of the eagle and the condor. And it's north and south families coming together as one ecosystem. And this is kind of a historical element. But I'm going to go through a real quick video. I think this is where, let's see, it's over here. So for those that have seen this, I'm sorry. For those that have not, actually, I'm going to play it in a different video player, primarily because the folks on board won't be able to see it or hear it. So this video player will allow that. Again, this is Phil Lane Jr. This was actually not scripted. This is the first time he actually ran through it. And it's a very sacred thing that he does to pass from one generation to the next. Not just a responsibility, but a stewardship, but the rights.
Itakeapi, my very, very beloved relatives of our human family. We live in a corrupt global system.
But are we a part of it?
Are we part of it? Are we part of it?
No.
No.
No. No.
We've been very patient as the few control resources we all need. The question is, can we change it?
We've all heard the voices shouting, "It's not your turn."
Our heart aches to do more, to be more. But time is running out.
Time is running out.
Time is running out.
We start by completely trusting we can make a difference. Because with one heart and one mind and many bodies, in unity, we can do anything.
Together we must take unprecedented, unified action.
And transform the world around us.
No matter how challenging that may be.
Individual sovereignty, freedom, love, and justice.
Unite us all.
Because there are indigenous-led technologies coming.
That gives us all the opportunity to stand,
To give, to love.
That's what responsible technology should do.
If you are one of those who believe it's your turn,
stand together.
Everywhere.
you as a rising generation.
So there's an individual who eventually will actually come onto these calls and help folks to understand not just the history and what was transpired historically, but what is to transpire in the future. And when we talk about Easter Island, and then we would talk about the rest of these different ecosystems and how they will actually come together, it was prophesied that technology, specifically things that will come from the cloud, will actually unite indigenous communities worldwide. And what we see from a capability of technology is it's here today. There's nothing stopping it. From what we see from of the heart is really where it's all. The alignment must come. And from what I'm seeing when we talk about some of these political steps, you know, kind of what we see within the United States of America, you know, and attempted assassinations in Mexico, real assassinations. We see a blurring of borders. We see a unity of humanity. Technology is actually bringing us together as one world, one people, one voice, but in many bodies, as Phil Lane said inside of that video. And the key is, as technology gets adopted, will it be done with decentralized technologies or centralized technologies? And what you're seeing the digital world do is basically creating a framework where different countries can actually build out their own ecosystems and govern themselves with their own different rules, regulations, councils, and however they're doing it, whether it's presidency, a monarch, a colonial-based system, like monarch, kind of like a kingdom-based system, or councils or other. The key is how do different jurisdictions actually have the choice to be able to set their societies free, to make it so that they can actually be free as individuals versus being profiled by secret combinations that are centrally profiled. And as we look at these different phases, the blue actually represents what we will see in October. It will stand up, and these different countries have actually come together. And when I say these different countries, I'm specifically talking about Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And there's many others. Saudi Arabia and others are already joining into this. And what they're doing is they're basically taking assets and backing those assets with what represents as a digital asset that then you can have a wallet within each jurisdiction that then can actually transfer from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So BRICS is standing up. In October, you'll see the same types of technology that the digital world has been rolling out. As a matter of fact, the technology will actually interface with one another. So the ability to do identities, the ability to do transactions or financial transactions, or even asset management, all of these different systems will be able to connect with one another. But what you see with the digital world is really a framework that other systems can plug into. And when we talk about other systems, one of the big news today, it ties to what's happening with these different, whether we're talking about individuals that have been taken, their lives have been taken, or whether we're talking about, new presidencies that are actually in place. But specifically, we're talking about the digital world enabling a system on top of or in front of an asset management system that is specifically for them, an identity management system that is specifically for them, or a system that is specifically for them. This is actually the first draft of a system where they can actually have their own identity. Mexican Life is an app where they can actually have their own financial assets that's tied to their identity. Their ability to have different systems that have come as examples from other jurisdictions. So for instance, when we look at a map, we've already seen, if I come back here, we've already basically seen massive interest within, not just when we look at the Americas or America or American or the Republic for the United States of America, but states within it, namely Texas, Arizona, and Utah, using similar systems but within their own jurisdiction or right tied to these different regions. So Mexico is a good example of one of those regions. And there's individuals, even before this call, that we connected with, specifically starting within the Yucatan Peninsula, which is inside of the Mexico country. But there's individuals that are actually on this call that have helped to open some of these doors to help this specific system be potentially positioned for the new leadership that is literally, we're talking about like June 2nd, a compelling event happened where these types of systems could actually be easily understood, adopted, implemented, educated, and I believe within 12 months, literally the country of Mexico could actually adopt a system that we've been talking about for so very long across the whole country. And what that would look like when we talk about interfacing with other parts of the world, specifically like Texas. Texas is doing what they want to do to protect their borders, to stop things that are negative within their borders for future generations, whereas the federal government of America may look at it differently. And so you end up seeing a clash between maybe Texas and a federal ecosystem, and Texas saying, hey, you know, when we were annexed, we had a right to be able to stand up as a nation, which, by the way, I am blown away that, because some of the original individuals that brought us into Texas were like, we actually believe that Texas should stand up as its own country, because it was its own country before it was annexed by the United States in the 1830s/1840s. And when that actually was starting, the process was starting, we built out an ecosystem, and I'll actually show it to you here, called Texan, where the actual state of Texas was turning into this Texan environment. And then when the state of Texas got wind of it, they were like, no, the state would actually look at doing something like this. So let's talk to the state and see if they would actually care about identity, if they would care about the individuals. So a similar type system to what we're looking at in Mexico. So think about it. If Texas adopts a system and Mexico adopts a system, and the systems are looked at from an identity standpoint, because again, on a couple of calls ago, we talked about some of the biggest identity issues primarily in the United States of America are two areas. One, people that are crossing the border, and two, people that are getting out of prison. Where are these people going? What are they doing? They just literally lose them. The systems are not efficient in managing it. And I'm not saying that people should be tracked or surveilled. That's not what this is about. But what this is about is for people to actually be free and for systems to actually serve humanity so that people don't become the victim of it. And if you want to understand what we're talking about around victim, we're talking about this Real ID that literally May 2025, this little dinky thing here will become very mandatory. And people will think it will be mandatory, but it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Give away convenience for our privacy or identity, then it does matter. If we want to say, we will go ahead and say biological, physical, and digital worlds all connect with the payment systems, identity systems, and then technology systems all connecting, and people just don't care. They don't understand what the future is going to happen for future generations with this type of a threat. But if you don't believe me, next time you travel, it will literally, at the same time, it'll actually take a photo of you. So it's linking your bio. So it's actually looking at your face. It's amazing it's actually sad what they can do just by that type of system. But the key is, how can identity be individually owned by responsible countries that will actually adopt it, along with rolling out the future financial system, the future identity system, the future asset management system, the future voting system, as well as wrapping it around technology. And it's not just Clear phones or Mexican phones or American phones or Hawaiian phones or Texan phones, but it ties to the ability for the individuals to actually take what usually is a surveillance device and start setting themselves free. And when we talk about setting free, most people are like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And I'll explain it to you. I try and do this multiple ways. So this is an example of a child here that has a last name that's basically been cryptographically removed. And someone can actually say, I want to actually see it and validate it. And then the parents that are responsible for this child can actually say, okay, you can see the last name, or you can see the middle name, etc. But the point being is it puts that control back in the individual's hands, not just around identity or licenses or registrations, but also around vehicles and other things that are similar to it. So, you know, you've seen this with other jurisdictions. The goal is to be able to provide an opportunity for people that have sacrificed a ton to be able to try and make a difference for future generations. Just like what we saw this last week. I mean, I don't know what people's political perspectives are, but for one human to say we're going to take the life of another human because of their beliefs and their actions, wrong is too small of a word. But systems behind the ability for people to actually implement this. For instance, if you think about it, what this is all going to come down to is a vote. And the vote is using the same systems that we already know are absolutely corrupt, whether it's within Canada, Australia, New Zealand, slash Aotearoa, or the United States of America. They all use Dominion voting systems, and we've seen time and time again how these things can basically be perverted and taken. A good example, like let's say the state of Texas were actually to adopt this and say, not only for a stock exchange that's 100% electronic, but for a voting system. And so I'll just jump in and say this. Oliver Guy is actually running for president. Oh no, open my phone, which by the way, I'm in the middle of nowhere. So access is super. This will be a really good test, like literally in the middle of nowhere. So I'm going to go ahead and open my Life app. I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to vote for this gentleman here. I'm going to scan it. That fast 5-factor authentication just casted my vote for this gentleman, Mr. Olive. So it's not a matter of, is the technology not capable? Because what you just saw is the ability to log in securely, the ability to vote securely, and the individual to own their own identity through that process. This technology exists. This technology is right in front of us. And imagine if countries like Mexico actually say, we want to do this. And not only for identity and financial transactions and land management or asset transactions or voting, but also to still want to tie it to health, who we are, our genealogy, who we come from, who our parents are, progenitors are, how next generations, think about 5 generations from now that can actually look back and say, where did I come from? What diseases in my history? What kind of environments are conducive for me? Maybe we have some epiphanies and we figure out that when you interject vaccines intravenously into the body, it does something from a positioning or standpoint of modifying the body. We don't know what that's going to happen generation over generation. And so getting the game film on this today with systems that can actually bring the future is really, really imperative. So with that being said, I'd like to just have a general discussion. There's some key individuals on this call. We haven't done formal introductions, and we'll do those in the future. But I would just like anything that we've talked about, if people have thoughts or feedback, or if there's any kind of corrections or any kind of observations, that would be valuable. Because we're talking about literally connecting up a whole country that is not tied to any of these other ecosystems. Like literally, they haven't gone into the BRIC system. They've been independent. Historically, they've been, I would say, I can't say if they've been oppressed. I don't know enough about it. I can tell you that my personal journey started in the mid-90s in the Yucatan Peninsula in a place called Chichen Itza and Tulum and Xcaret and, that area. I just asked the question, who are these people? Where did they come from? And then as I studied, as we dug into details, really, all of the things we're talking about here with these different communities and generations, for me, it helped to be able to grasp the perspective that we're actually one world and one people. This racial, slur and difficulty is it doesn't do anything but hurt us. Like, look at what's happened with this assassination. Is that a racial thing? No, it's a political thing. Do we just not understand one another? Well, who knows? Maybe there's a mental issue. Maybe there's more design. Maybe there's a plan. Maybe all these other leaders that are saying put a bullseye on them, maybe those things are all real. But these are lives. I don't care what people think about this man, 80-year-old man that's willing to stand up for freedom, at least what he believes is freedom. Yeah. So I'll stop blabbing. I think, most of you already know political perspectives, etc. But any thoughts or feedback or comments or observations that you want to review or discuss?
Hey, Michael, it's Margaret.
Hi, Margaret.
So in the beginning of the conversation here, you were talking about the new president coming in. And I thought, I don't really understand her role going forward because it looks like her background is heavily embedded with the UN and the environmental agenda.
Okay.
That's her background. So if someone could speak to maybe her role going forward, because it just looked like that was the direction everything was going to be heading going forward, and whatever judgment there is, would be kind of aligned with that. So that's all I have to say at the moment. Is just I'm not really clear about her role going forward, if it's positive or if it's not.
Yeah, I don't understand it either. So, but it is.
Oh, okay.
It is neat that folks have independently been able to see the triangulation between how technology and politics can actually come together and free humanity. Anybody that knows the history there, could we provide feedback there, or at least some observations?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
So you want me to comment something about?
Yeah, you're the only one that would be able to comment on the transfer of power, the triangulating events, the opportunities that are in front of us, and maybe if agendas are tied to UN type agendas, or I don't understand or know it there. I just know that if there's an interest level from a technology standpoint, there may be a way to gain unity. So any feedback would be valuable.
So, for example, for a broader perspective into for example, they're in the Mexican territory. What it needs to be done right now is to, I don't know how to say it, to integrate the society, because it has been kind of fragmented, and that's what the new party is trying to accomplish. But it needs to be done from it needs the society, and the society needs to have a way to be able to speak and have their own the own way to present all their ideas. And the part that I like it the most is a part of the health, have all the health records of our society, and I think that will help us a lot in the near future to eliminate not all the diseases, but to have more comprehension of the meta science, and the metagenomics that it needs to be done in a whole society. And I think it's a very good moment right now with all the changes that beautiful nation that I love with all my heart, but they had a lot of conflicts in there. As you say it, more than 30 candidates from all different kind of parties were assassinated in the last 6 months. It's crazy.
And as I guess I've been in the Pacific for a good chunk of it, but I wasn't aware of any of those. These other people that were assassinated, what were their drivers? What was their intent? Do you have any color on that? Knowledge around that?
Yeah, there were candidates from different levels of the politics. Like local governments, like all different levels, but they were all candidates
And do you believe the heart
and different
of-
parties.
Okay.
Yeah, different parties. So it was not like one in particular. No, it was all over the place. So that's why I think the security part is something that it needs to be addressed like so badly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why they are very concerned about it. Something that we can do it by ourselves as a community. I don't know. They
Yeah.
just put me. Tell me.
Do you really believe that there's an opportunity to forklift upgrade a centralized system in Mexico to a decentralized system like what we're contemplating here, that literally it would replace the identity systems, the health systems, the financial systems, the asset management systems, including land management, vehicle management, etc., and then also ties into voting for future votes, and then also disputes, and all of those things don't have to be adopted. As a matter of fact, just a couple of them are listed here. But do you really believe that there's a compelling event with this new election where this could become a reality?
Well, what I do really think is that is something that Mexico needs since we were part of Spain. So because we were not a colony. We were viceroyalty. So we were part of Spain because we were dragging the bureaucracy since then, and we need to address in all the systems in all levels in a different perspective, in a different way. So that's something that it needs to be addressed, because that's the main reason why it's so hard to make enterprises to even collect the taxes, or to be able to know what's going on with everything inside, because all the different dependencies doesn't have the connections between it. And yeah, that's I think if it's not us, it will be someone else.
Yeah.
But it's something that is need to be.
And you, as an individual that lives outside of the country, but you also see the potential for unity between different, whether they're different ecosystems. For instance, earlier it was mentioned that really almost a majority of Texas is actually Hispanic. And
yeah,
when we look at other jurisdictions like Utah and Arizona, maybe Nevada, maybe California, but I think Texas leading the way. If Texas were to stand up identity systems that were similar to Mexico's or Mexican systems, the ability to grab and create unity and transparency for families on one side of the border, on the other side of the border, that want to move, or that just want to add value in society, or maybe send funds back and forth, with systems that are transparent and honest, and really, really can integrate cross-border capabilities. Do you really see that as a benefit and a possible reality?
Well, as a Mexican American, I think that's something that many families in here, they were wanting that for so long, because I have met so many people who have been trapped,
Yeah.
and they have no other option just to stay in complete fear all their lives, even if they pay taxes or whatever. And it's but it's something that needs to be addressed. It's not only immigration, but it's more about the identity of two nations that once they were, and we are all part of the same country, so on the same continent, you know.
Yeah.
But there's so many things that needs to be like addressed in from the history, and the more that we know about that, the better we can adopt these new technologies as a right tool to do it, and not like utilize those technologies because some other could use those technologies in not the same perspective and the same objectives as we try and do.
Yeah. You know, I really feel like the simple connection between, you know, the Texas and the Mexico ecosystems, just those two connections, when we talk about this phased rollout and adoption and even BRICS coming in, and what we're talking about with the digital world linking all of these systems together, where people can just have choice. They don't have to use the systems. But I think just Texas and Mexico, those two environments coming together could create a compelling event for all of humanity to learn from, to grow from. And really what it does is it brings, I think, the whole world closer together. One world, one people. And the fighting, you know, I know that there's multiple wars going on around the world, but I think the fighting is nowhere close to where it will be. And I just hope that we can make a lot of progress while we're in times of peace and have the opportunity to be able to come together. So it's a wonderful period, you know, especially when we're talking about, you know, we had some meetings with folks within different ecosystems within this new government that's standing up. And then on Thursday, we'll continue forward with more of them. But it's very hopeful, as well as at the same time, we'll have parallel conversations with the folks in Texas. And then we'll watch what's rolling out within the environment of the United States of America as these elections come along. I can tell you that, you know, working within the IT systems and centralized systems for the first 15 years of my career out of 30 plus years, there's a lot of dysfunction in America. Each state has its own health information exchanges. Each county has its own records when you're talking about health type systems and departments that then tie into states. We're talking about voting and other ecosystems, it's the same type of thing. So other comments or feedback, questions, comments, anything?
Hey, Michael, Phoenix here. Sorry that I'm late.
You're okay.
I was in the middle of quite a few different things. So can you brief me on what's happened thus far?
The best, actually just wrapping up, but the best thing to do is probably go and watch it stream real time. So if you want, when it's all done, I can just send you a link to it. We're primarily just announcing that an opportunity with the country of Mexico is standing up, and primarily with a couple different jurisdictions, which aren't to be announced yet, primarily because they're still maturing. But it's neat to see a lot of this come full circle, because my personal experience started within the ecosystems of the Yucatan Peninsula, and some of the questions of just looking at some of these people after coming off of some of the ruins like Chichen Itza and saying, who are these people? What is their history? What are these ruins? And really just trying to understand. A lot of it took me on a spiritual journey through life. And, you know, and to be honest with you, there's a lot of answers that have actually been realized, especially being in the Pacific. So when we're looking at a lot of these different, you know, environments here, it was eye-opening to be in the Pacific with the Polynesians, the Micronesians, the Melanesians, and the amazing spirit and heart that they have. But anyhow, the best thing to do is probably just I'll send you a link to this meeting and then go from there. Other feedbacks or thoughts as it pertains to this meeting or anything in general? Okay, so
Phoenix again here. Sorry, Michael. I think that you and I need to talk regarding that specific topic that I missed out on because I was kind of handling it on another I don't know how to explain it. So please reach out to me after this. Thank you.
Okay, will do. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you for your time, and we will talk to you soon.